So all the way back when I was 5 years old, I started playing piano, did that for a few years, moved on to cello, did that for a few years, and then my nan bought me a guitar for Christmas around my 8th birthday. And that was it. I was completely hooked. There's a magazine called Kerrang and I get all the stickers and stick them on there. I carry it around school all the time, got the nickname Johnny Guitar, and it never left my side. It was like a blanket or a teddy for a young child. And it was like a transitional object for me, going throughout my teens and everything. So, and then when I was 12, I started getting into singing. And then I started combining the two. I got into bands and duos, etc, etc. And then when I went to university to study music, I went there as an electric guitarist and I did all this sort of fancy shredding and things, like guitarists like Joe Satriani and Steve Vai, and I grew up with them. I had all their albums. So I quickly found out when I went to university that I was in a pool of lots of guitarists, and I kind of didn't really know my identity around that. So I started going out with an acoustic guitar. I got a steel string guitar for my 18th, and it was electro. It was all right, but it allowed me to go out and plug in and open mic nights and build up my experience as well. In my second year, I did a guitar recital, and I decided for one of the pieces on acoustic to do some solo guitar arrangements. Then I thought, this brilliant idea came where I bought a cheap nylon guitar. I turned the thing over, I got a saw, and I cut out a hole at the back of it. And then I decided to get a friend's snare drum, because he's a drummer. And I thought, can I borrow this? And I carved out a hole at the back of the guitar. I stuck this snare drum at the back. The most ridiculous thing, because the science behind it is there won't be any acoustics for the guitar or the snare drum. So there won't be any resonance in both of these instruments. So it was more like a gimmick. But anyway, I ploughed on ahead, and my idea was I play the track, started strumming this really intricate solo guitar performance. I turned the guitar over to then go into the drum section, where I had to do all these fills and things as well. I hit the skin of the snare drum, and the clips that hold the skin in place started pinging off all my bandmates, and it kind of felt like slow motion, and a bit like the Matrix, where all these clips were flying everywhere. So I went from a really tight snare drum sound to this real sort of whoopee cushion. I kind of felt like I just sank into the stage at that point, and you could just tell it was a horrendous, anxious feeling that you kind of got that slow clap after the performance. So obviously I was devastated after that performance. I went to my course tutor the next day, who was examining it, and we sat down, and we both knew it wasn't very good. But I had a sliding doors moment there. I could either give up, or I could just keep pressing on and ploughing on and doing everything I can. What I decided is to sort of steer away from the percussive thing and just carry on as a singer-songwriter. So I moved from Southampton, which was south of England and the United Kingdom, and then moved up to London. And I went around the circuit, and I started going out, and I wrote lots of material, strumming and singing as a singer-songwriter. But after doing that for about a year or 2 years, I quickly found that my set was just a little bit samey, a little bit too repetitive. And I felt more like an entertainer, because I was cracking jokes and things as well, and not really focused on my musicianship and getting myself in the bubble. So I kind of felt I wasn't really writing for myself. I was writing for what was trending or what was out there. At that point I had an album, and I had a couple of EPs, and it was at that point that I decided, I think it was one London gig, and I came out and I went, no, that's it. And I scrapped all my old material, which is one of the hardest decisions to make, really. I then decided to take 2 years out of my whole playing career, which is equivalent of a master's degree, which a master's degree was in sort of the pipeline, but I sort of thought, no, it wasn't for me. But this, taking 2 years out, was like the defining moment of this new style that I sort of carved out and then developed on and just progressed. from there. So I then went back to the drawing board. And so in the fingerstyle guitar world, if you haven't heard of these guys, I'd check them out. During university, McKee's Drifting came out. There was Tommy Manuel, there was Antoine Dufour, there was lots of different guys. But it was actually Antoine Dufour's arrangement of Hide and Seek by Imogen Heap. And if you haven't heard the original or the arrangement, go and check it out. It's immense, and it's what converted me to fingerstyle guitar playing, because what he did is take all the ingredients from that piece, the dynamics, the touch, the articulation was just so on cue. And sometimes when you hear a piece or you hear something else that someone's played, you feel sort of compelled to go, I want to give up. But actually it did the other, it inspired me to go, no, I really want to learn this style. Also around that time, I think it was more when I came up to London, Newton Faulkner had just brought out his Handmade by Robots, and that sort of introduced me to a little bit of percussive fingerstyle with singing over the top. And I had already tried that out before, and I was like, oh wow, I didn't realise actually this is becoming sort of a community of these guys, like virtuoso guitar players with singing over the top. And then Jon Gomm came into my visual. Now this guy had been going out for years and years and years and years, and really defining his own playing and singing over the top. And he brought out this video, which you might have heard as well, called Passion Flower, and Stephen Fry shared it and it went viral, and it propelled Jon up to this level where in the sort of fingerstyle guitar singing world, he's like at the peak, and a guy I kind of look up to for the more experimental side of being what I call a fingerstyle singer-songwriter. He might class himself as a different thing. I don't think there's been a key phrase to nail it down yet, but sort of more of a virtuoso acoustic guitar player with singing over the top. So he brought out that track, and then all these other guys started popping up. And it got me excited because I was just like, wow, okay, well, I tried this with a snare drum and guitar and it's ridiculous. But these guys are installing pickups and everything as well, and they're allowing their guitars to enhance themselves. And then I started to carve out my first EP, which is Diffuse. And it had tracks like Stormy Weather Rolls, and which has got a guitar solo piece with a vocal over the top and delayed vocal. And then I had a track called Diffuse, which was like a combination of McKee and Antoine Dufour and Tommy Manuel and Jon Gomm all sort of thrown in like a mixing bowl, and I kind of took all those inspirations and went bam, 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 bam. And during that process, the course tutor that I sat down with the day after that horrendous recital was sending me snippets and albums of the legend that is Michael Hedges. And now if you haven't heard Michael Hedges, he was almost like a beacon in the 80s and 90s of modern fingerstyle playing. He was kind of ahead of his time, and he passed away before he could even see how much this thing has blown up. And in the fingerstyle community is one of the guys that everybody looks up to. In that 2-year process, I also started getting to know some other guitarists, fingerstyle guitarists around the UK, like Chris Wood's Groove and Will McNichol and Declan Sapella and Daryl Kelly and Robert Castellani, Amrit Sond, and so on and so on. So many guys. And then Mike Dawes brought out his amazing fingerstyle pieces as well, and Thomas Lieb, absolute legend, along with Preston Reed, and so on and so on. I started to get to know these guys in sort of different communities and online, and I quickly found out there's a whole world of fingerstyle guitarists in this community. But what I quickly found out was just like, if I go out solo guitarist, I'm going to be swamped. There's so many coming out of the pipeline. So what I did with Diffuse is also almost like Diffuse was like a mix of like guitar-led tracks and guitar and singing-led tracks. So I decided, no, I'm going to go straight down the guitarist and singing route. And that means then I'm kind of in a pool of, you know, few. It's quite niche, but it's something that I'm passionate about because I come from this rock pop singer-songwriter background, along with doing lots of other bands, fronting them as well, rock bands and things as well. I come from like hooky phrases and choruses and verses and things as well. And then this sort of virtuoso guitar background as well. So the key thing then is like, right, I'm going to be able to combine these together. And then going on from there, I then put together my debut album, which was Reborn, and that's kind of got a blueprint of lots of different combinations of, you know, the fingerstyle guitar and singing and fingerstyle guitar playing on its own. But since then, so I've developing more albums, the fingerstyle guitar and singer-songwriter is exactly where I want to be. I love carving songs, I love playing virtuoso guitar playing.